welcome to CITAM Church Online. My name is Purity. It's a joy to have you come watch our CITAM Church Online videos. We are excited. We pray for you. We believe that God is doing amazing things in your lives, and we are here to stay because we are inspired by the kind of testimonies and responses we keep on getting from you, the CITAM Church Online family. And today, I would just want to be sharing with us a subject that is close to my heart at this particular point in time, about humility and how humility will take you to heights that you have not thought about. You know, in the book of Micah chapter 6, God is speaking to his people, and he is using the prophet Micah to just respond to them. He had this conversation in the entire chapter of Micah chapter 6, but he gets to a point where he talks to them about what exactly counts before the presence of God, beyond sacrifices, beyond service. And in Micah chapter 6 verse 7 to 8, God is speaking to his people through the prophet, and he says, "Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, 10,000 rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what is it that is good? And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justly." Number one, to do justly. Number two, to love mercy. And the bottom line of them all, he says, and to walk humbly with your God. You know what C.S. Lewis says? He says that humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. You know, when God calls his people to attention, I believe they had gotten to a point where they felt there are many things that they would do, by themselves. There are many things that they would present before God that would count before him. But what really counts before God? He says, he's calling you, he's calling myself. What excites God is not sacrifices. Otherwise, he is all sufficient. But what pleases God is to walk justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. What does it mean then to walk humbly with your God? You know, humility is a liberation from self-consciousness, or the consciousness of self, where it is about I, me, and myself, which is not a holy trinity, because if you're not humble, you will be consumed by the carnality of the human nature that is very selfish, that just thinks about himself. And if you're not liberated from the self, then you are a slave. You are such a slave, because the person that has been liberated from the consciousness of themselves, where they want the world to stand at an attention because of them, they are surely free. This kind of a person who has been liberated from the self is free indeed, because what happens? Number one, you acknowledge that you are nothing without God. And I believe that is what the prophet was speaking to the people of God, that God requires that you walk humbly with your God. Why? Because God is. You are a product of his creation. And therefore, if you're walking humbly before God, you are saying, I acknowledge without God I'm nothing. I cannot be without God. And at this point in time, you respond freely to his guidance, you respond freely to his help, you respond freely to his direction and instructions. In fact, Paul, writing to the church in Corinth, he asked them, is there anything that you have not received? And if everything that you have received, then what makes you boast? That everything that you are, including the breath that you have received from God. And if you have received everything, every detail of your life is about the help and the grace and the mercy of God, then why should you boast? So my message in this conversation is to call you and myself to attention, and to remind me and yourself that there is nothing that you have not received. there is nothing that you will ever become on the face of the earth that is not about God, then what does that mean? It calls us to the attention to revere God, to honor God, to adore Him, to glorify Him in such a way that we acknowledge that it is about God. Therefore, humility says, it is God that I am. And if God was not in the picture, then I could be nothing. So humility calls you and myself to humble ourselves before God and to walk before Him with humility, because as a result, then He's going to lift you up. He's going to lift me up. That is what His word says, that we humble ourselves before God, and in due course, He is going to lift us up. Now, when God lifts you up, it is sustainable, because whatever God does is permanent. So if we are able to humble ourselves before God and we seek His help, we are helped by Him and His grace. We acknowledge that it is by the grace of God that we are. And you know, that humility also causes a people that have not given their lives to Jesus to acknowledge that they can do nothing apart from God. Even if you have all that you need in this world, in terms of wealth, in terms of material things, you acknowledge that without God, you are zero, you are not, you're nothing. But with God, even what He has allowed you to own and to become a steward of, whether it is human beings, whether it is wealth, it is about Him. You acknowledge that if I have been given this stewardship, then I need to honor God even with whatever He has entrusted to me. So in this conversation, it is just a reminder that there is nothing that you have not received. God is not pleased with sacrifices. God is not so fussy about your offerings, your service, even if you burnt your entire body as a sacrifice. In fact, our best intentions are like filthy rags before the Lord. It is all about Him. He is so keen on us human beings walking humbly before Him. He is pleased about that. And that really changes the matrix. It changes the way you view things. It changes the way you treat people. It changes the way you walk around. It changes to whom you give glory. It changes to whom you honor and adore, because it is all about God. We are because God is. He created us for Himself, and He created us for His pleasure. And therefore, if He did that, we have to respond. Like Micah reminds us that He requires for us to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. I believe God has reminded you something by His Spirit. I believe God has implored on you, if you are not aware that you need to walk humbly before God. That one changes your attitude and the way even you view and treat others, because you are by the grace of God. Thank you for watching CITAM Church Online. My name is Purity. I'm excited that you could be able to come in and just have this conversation and listen in. And I believe God is transforming your lives. God is growing you. God is turning your heart around. God is transforming you. If you have not received Jesus, your heart is warm to us, following God, acknowledging Him, and receiving Jesus as the Lord over your life. Thank you for watching. You can continue with this conversation at the CITAM Church Online platforms. We are excited to just have you join us in these conversations, and we believe that God is transforming your life. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.